Good day and welcome to this April edition of our video series in what we are sowing and growing each month. Now it's about the 9th, I think, of April now, so I would normally have done this right at the beginning of the month. Though for some reason or another I can't really put my finger on exactly what it is. It's just been a busy time. So I'm getting around to this today, which is great. Before I begin, just two things. I know I've said this, I think, in every video so far, and I'm just going to say it again. When you are sowing seeds, please do not sow too many seeds. If you keep seeds, or most seeds, in the fridge, they will last a good few years. So if you only want 10 lettuce plants, don't sow 100 lettuce seeds, because most of them are likely to germinate and you'll either be giving those seedlings away or wasting them, which of course is not what we want to do. Seeds are precious things, and I know there are billions of seeds around the planet, but you know what? Seeds are precious. Let's treat them that way. If we can get 5 years or more growing out of one purchase of seeds, which you can't necessarily get for carrots or parsnips because they have a shorter viability of life as a seed, but you can certainly get that for most brassicas. Let's do that. Let's elongate the viability of seeds by keeping them well. Keep them in the fridge. A shed is really not a good place, particularly over summer, to keep seeds. It gets far too hot, and seeds like to be cold and dark, preferably. The second thing is we're London, so we're in the south of England. So your sowing times, if you're in the UK, may be a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or even 4 weeks behind us. I mean, at the moment, it's the 9th of April and it's 7 degrees out there. I'd expect it to be a bit warmer at the moment. And we've had really cold weather. And I suppose that's one reason that I've put off some sowing, which I'll come on to in a minute, because of that cold weather. We had a cold snap really right at the beginning of April, and March was really a bit of an odd month. The other thing is everything is really dry at the moment, really dry. Yeah, paths where there isn't any grass are cracking, and, fingers crossed we don't have a drought this year. I hope we're going to have some rain today. Even at the moment, though, if we had sort of heavy rain, it would just run off the ground here. It would run down our site. But anyway, there we are. So let's start off with A, which again is going to be A for asparagus. So we planted asparagus crowns last month. This month we have been given these seeds. Can you see them? They're little berries. These are berries from a fellow plot holder right at the bottom of our site. And he collected these in the autumn after his asparagus had flowered, and has had really good success growing on asparagus from seeds. And all he does is sow these like this. He doesn't take the seed out of these berries, if you like. He just sows these and then pots them on when they germinate, or maybe 4 or 5 weeks after they germinate. So we're going to be doing that as well and seeing how they do. The good thing is, by sowing them this year, we may have viable asparagus crowns in 2 or 3 years' time. So by the time the ones in containers that we have planted up are coming to the end of their life, we'll have viable crowns to continue growing, which will be great. Beetroot. I was going to sow Bikores and Ukrainian organic. I didn't get round to it. There are some things I didn't get round to sowing last month. Our carrots and our parsnips, I just felt that the weather was too cold for us to do that. I know many other people have done it, but I just felt it was too cold for us. So I'm going to wait till this cold snap is over. So I'll most probably be sowing those around the middle of April. What else did I put off? Lettuce. I've got Philadelphia Dutch Butter, Outrageous and Lobjoy's Green. I put off the sowing of those from March to April. I was given some seedlings. I've already got seedlings of two types of lettuce, Burpee's Iceberg and Amish Deer Tongue, coming along well. So I don't want to have a glut of lettuce. A lettuce I will be giving away, which is absolutely fine. But even with the seedlings I've already got and the ones I was given, I'll be giving those away. So I didn't want to have a glut of lettuce by sowing further seed, though I think I will be sowing these 3 seeds later in the month. What else did I put off? Parsnips I've mentioned, that was it. So it basically was the beetroot, the carrots, parsnips and the lettuce that I've put off from sowing in March to sowing in April. So let's now come on to the new things that I'm going to be sowing this month, or new to this series of videos. I mean, not necessarily new to us, though some of them are. Beans. Being a vegetarian, beans are a big part of Richard and my diets, and we sow quite a few beans. And what I've decided this year is most of the beans I'm going to be sowing are going to be ones that I can either use as a pod and a dried bean, or as a dried bean solely. There's a few exceptions to that, and I'll just mention those in a moment. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that if I miss some beans on the plant, I can still use their seed in soups and stews and whatever going into the winter. We've got a big plane coming over. Let me just pause you for a moment. Most of the beans we're going to be growing are also climbing beans rather than bush beans. So bush beans, or dwarf beans, as they're called in the UK mainly, are ones which do not climb. They bush out, which is why Americans call them bush beans. We call them dwarf beans because they usually only grow to 1.5 foot, something like that. And the reason I'm doing more climbing beans is I find I get more produce from the climbing bean than I do from the bush bean. However, there are 2 bush beans that we really do like. One is eaten as a pod, not as a bean, though you can eat it as a dried bean. Obviously you need to reconstitute it, but you can eat it as a dried bean, but it's generally eaten as a yellow pod bean, and that's Rocquencourt. It's a beautiful flavoured dwarf bean, which most years we are going to be doing. Not all years, but most years. And this year we are going to be trying them again. Last year some were successful, but we had a really odd year with beans last year. So fingers crossed for all of our beans for this year. The other one that we're going to be growing is Coco de Paimpol, which are beans that Vivi has heralded, and they really are a fantastic bean. They're a bush bean, and you grow them for the bean, not for the pod. So when they grow, you can freeze them demi-sec, if you like, which is semi-dry, or you can let them dry completely and then keep them in a storage jar, preferably again in the fridge because they'll last longer there. I do know some people who put them in the freezer, and I think that's a really good idea if you're going to be saving the seed for growing another year. But that's another video for later in the year, or you can catch up with the video we did on that last year. Now coming on to climbing beans. We've got a whole range of climbing beans that we're doing. A few that are new to us this year are one called Golden Gate, which we've got from Vital Seeds. I'm a great fan of Vital Seeds. This is a golden yellow podded bean, so you can eat it as a pod bean, so just like the Rocquencourt. though also the bean is quite chunky, and it can be kept for putting into soups and stews as a dried bean later on in the year. Another one which is sort of new to us this year, I'm not sure, oh yeah, I do have it here. This one, I can't remember who this one is from. I think Beans and Herbs, I think it is. Tarbais. Now, Tarbais beans used to be the variety of bean that Dad used to grow for Mum to put in soups and stews, and particularly cassoulets. So this has an awful lot of memories for me of being a rather young kid, around 6 or 7. So I'm looking forward to growing that and then making some stews out of it. Ours will be vegetarian. When I was 6 or 7, I wasn't vegetarian then. So yeah, it's a climbing French bean, and I'm really looking forward to that. A couple of others that we've got from Rochny is one called Coco Prolific, and if I can open this up, it's a yellow and cream coloured bean. You see that yellow there, and it's brown on the other side. These are sometimes called orca beans, and also yin yang, or yin yang, I think. We don't know whether these are actually called Coco Prolific, and we don't know whether they're climbers or dwarf, but we'll find out when we get on to growing them. And also there's one called a case knife bean, which again I was sent. These are really sort of just brown beans, very standard brown beans. Don't know what they're like, what their real name is. The label says case knife, so we'll see what grows from them. Other beans, runner beans. Now, runner beans can obviously be eaten as a pod. That's what they are generally grown for. We particularly like to allow them to grow fully on and then keep as a dried bean, which we can use in place of kidney beans in chilies and stews. So these are actually, we call these Shaz's Scarlet Emperor runner beans. They came from Shaz, the Kingstone 8. This is now their 4th growing year for us. So these seeds in here were seeds that we saved last year. There's plenty in there for a couple of years. Whether we'll do seed saving or not this year of those, I'm not sure. Let me just pick up my bit of paper. Oh, I'm all sort of higgledy-piggledy today. I'm not quite sure why, but I am. And another bean, look at that. Isn't that glorious? So this is Madeira Maroon. It has a fantastic waxy pod, which is beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and largely stringless, which is great. What we also then do is we just leave them to dry on the plant. Any pods that we don't use, we'll leave to dry on the plant. And they're brilliant to use like borlotti beans. Again, soups and stews and that type of thing. So these were from the Seed Detective several years ago, and they really are a firm favourite of ours. We've sent a few of those to other people to grow on. They were in the Heritage Seed Library last year, but they're not in the catalogue this year, which I find so strange because I love the beans so much. Maybe other people didn't. Other things we're growing new to us is a bird's egg horticultural, which is brand new to us. And again, that's one that can be used as a pod and as a dried bean. And then Canadian White, which was new to us last year. Again, a pod and a bean. It's a cross between a small runner, like a half runner bean, and a flat French bean. So it's it's really odd because the pod is more the size of a large pea than a bean, but it's absolutely glorious. So we're going to be growing that again. Cucumbers, something we're going to be sowing relatively soon. We're sowing Vivi's saved cucumbers. I think she did a video of how to save cucumber seeds, and I'll see if I can link to it here. They're very prolific for Vivi and usually do very well. We had a really bad year with cucumbers last year, and it was with fresh seed that we had bought, so that was disappointing. So fingers crossed for this year. Then, as I've mentioned, we're going to be sowing our carrots and our parsnips, the same ones that I said we were going to be sowing last month in March. And with carrots, I'm going to add London Market to that list. All of the names of what we are going to be sowing this month, I will put in the details below. So do have a look there, because obviously I'm skipping over some names. Then Giant of Italy parsley. I'm going to be doing a second sowing of that. We have the we sowed them in seed trays, but we're going to use them as modules, and we're going to be planting the ones we sowed in January out into the bed just in front of me here in the next couple of weeks after this weather has gone, mainly because of me being outside in the cold rather than them. They're not going to worry too much about the cold at the moment. My Sarpo Mirror potatoes I haven't planted yet. The Colleen went in on the 17th of March. Those are our early potatoes, our salad potatoes. But the Sarpo Mirror, I'll be planting them in a week or so. Once this cold snap has gone, it looks as though the temperatures start increasing. So fingers crossed. Squash. I don't have any butternut seeds, which is unusual because we've generally done well with butternut squashes, but last year was a complete disaster. We didn't even get one. And you know what? I didn't buy any. So when I went to look for organic butternut squash, I couldn't find any. And I've decided from now on that the seeds that I buy are always going to be organic. So when I couldn't find them, because what I don't want to do is buy a packet of seeds at £3.50, £4 and have to spend another £3 on postage. So we'll most probably do without this year. Cheeky Prince, which is our hybridized squash, which is originally hybridized from a Crown Prince pumpkin and an Uchiki curry squash. We called it Cheeky Prince, and this is now its 4th season of growing. These seeds came from Jay from Hilltop Farm down under, and I'll put a link to his channel here. Thanks very much for the seeds, Jay. And if you have asked for seeds, they'll be coming out to you in the next week. Uchiki curry. It's a acorn squash. It's absolutely lovely. It's like Japanese and red and gorgeous. And I'm hoping that we're going to grow some of these successfully up bean frames. So we'll grow beans and then grow the pumpkins up the frames as well that we put in. Fingers crossed. And then the final one that we're doing this year, so we're not doing that many, is Oregon Homestead Sweetmeat. So this is one that it says from Oregon, and it's a homesteading variety, and it's a bit like an American Crown Prince, though looks a bit bigger. Again, these are from Vital Seeds, and I'm looking forward to growing this variety. It's one that I've been looking forward to growing for some time, and then I found the right seeds at Vital Seeds, so I'm growing it. And then finally, we're going to be doing a sowing of Swede. It's Wilhelmsberger, and I'm looking forward to that. Those are going to be direct sown in the ground. They're not going to be sown in modules, and I'll be getting on with that again in a few weeks when things just warm up a bit. At the moment, even though the temperature has increased a few degrees, that wind is there. And what you need to remember that if it is cold and there is wind, the wind chill factor will decrease the actual temperature. So if you're looking at something like 7 degrees, but you've got a strong wind in that 7 degrees, the wind chill will most probably take it down to something like 4 degrees, 5 degrees, 4 degrees, even 3 degrees. And obviously when you're sowing something shallowly, i.e. in a shallow... Oh, that's the door closing. Let me just open the door because the sound goes funny, I think. And I'm back. So the temperature of your soil, when we have low temperatures like we have at the moment, and we have that wind bringing further wind chill, it really can chill the top inch and a half of your soil. Down below it might not be quite so cold, but if you're sowing something in the top inch and a half of soil, it can really lower the temperature, and it can really dry it out as well. That drying wind at the moment is meaning that where we have sown things like peas and beans direct in the soil outside, which you may have seen in a week at the plot, we are watering those to make sure that they are not going to dry out again. Because what you don't want to do is when something starts germinating, you don't want it to dry out again because it will likely just die. So do remember, if you've got cold weather and you've got that wind chill can really bring down the top few inch and a half of your soil and also dry it out. So as long as we get a little lift in temperature by mid-April, I'll be sowing these swede. They're pretty tough seeds, but I want to give them the best start that I can. That's the thing with sowing seeds. You want to give things the best start that you possibly can. So that's it. That's what we're going to be sowing this month. Some videos will form part of our Grow Along series, our How to Sow series that we're doing. Others like, what am I talking about? The beetroot. I'll most probably do some direct sowing as part of a week at the plot. And we'll be planting out the beetroot and the chard as well that we have in the polytunnel this month. But now I'm jumping ahead. But yeah, they will form part of some videos. I think the first one will most probably be carrots and parsnips. Right, what have we got growing? Well, before I get onto that, everything that you have seen us sown so far in the last couple of months, you can carry on sowing now. For asparagus seeds, it's getting a little late, but you've still got a few weeks if you want to get on with those. Everything else that we have sown and planted out is doing pretty well. The Train Driver Mountain Range, Mange 2 stroke peas, and the Oregon Sugar Pod Mange 2 plants that we planted out about 2 weeks ago are doing really well. At the same time, we sowed direct in the soil the same varieties, and a few days later we sowed 3 other varieties. And what I've noticed is that the Golden Sweet has germinated today. If you're watching our A Week at the Plot videos, you'll have seen me planting out those plants and sowing those seeds a week or so back. What else have we got? We've got the garlic is just looking fantastic. The onions are looking a bit, I don't know, if you've seen our April allotment tour, they're not really doing very much at the moment. We've grown them successfully before, apart from 1 year where we had white rot, but this year they just don't seem to be getting going. And considering we would normally be looking at harvesting those around the beginning of July, I'd want them to be a bit further along than they are at the moment. But you know what? They're not. Some things that haven't done well for us in our sowings, the Paravere parsley. It was old seed, but not too old, but it hasn't germinated at all. Considering how well the thinly sown Giant of Italy parsley grew that we sowed back in January, that's the one we're going to be putting out in the bed just near the shed, considering how well that did, the Paravere parsley, I mean, yeah, not a single seedling. Also, our spring onions, which I think were White Lisbon that we sowed again in January, I think about 3 have germinated, which is really, really poor germination. Again, it was old seed, but not really old seed. It was only like a year, and I think it was still within its best by date. But no, really poor germination. So maybe we'll be sowing some more spring onions as well. The broad beans continue to do okay and have basically improved from that snow and cold weather that we got 6 weeks ago or so. And though there hasn't been any germination of the Grando Violetto broad beans that we put in, I'm expecting those to be up within a week or so. The highly scientific experiment broad beans that we put in, we planted out over a week ago into one of our pocket beds, and they're doing okay. Though one of the 8 plants has died. It was a very late germinating one. I think it was in the whole grain cereal carton. So we've only got one in that cereal carton at the moment. The 2 plants that we have in each of the other 3 cereal cartons are all doing well. And peppers. We potted on our peppers a good week or 10 days ago. And the tomatoes that we sowed back in February are now about 3 inches high, and they need potting on too. So I'm going to be doing that this weekend. We did do some potting on of the tomatoes and peppers in a week at the plot video a week ago, so do go back and have a look at that. Where else are we? No, that's about it. Yeah, that's about it. So I will, much of what we're talking about, you will be able to see me doing either in separate how to sow videos or parts of a week at the plot. I quite like doing it as part of a week at the plot because it keeps that rhythm going for me, which I think is really great. But where we do have something new that we're sowing, it will likely be in a separate how to sow and grow video. So I'm going to leave it there. I've rambled on for about 20 minutes, I think. If you've got to the end, fantastic. Thank you very much. And if you got bored halfway through, then I hope that you found something else more exciting to watch. Anyway, I will see you again next month, May, for another video about what we are sowing and growing that month. And I will see you for further segments of a week at the plot if you're on Planet Vegetaria on a daily basis at the moment. Or if you watch a week at the plot on YouTube, I'll see you on Monday for this week's A Week at the Plot. Okay, hope to see you soon. Any questions, any comments, please leave them down below. And if you're not a subscriber and you've got to the end of this video, please do subscribe and hit the bell button to get notifications. See you soon. Bye.